Okay. Hello, welcome to our Tuesday morning class. Our topic for this morning is bar and bat mitzvah. I'm going to begin with a rather provocative statement, and then I'm going to explain what I mean. I'm going to be using some terms in a way that are quite different from the way they're used in normal Jewish speech today. Here is my provocative statement. I was never bar mitzvahed, and I've never bar mitzvahed anyone. The point being, bar mitzvah is a noun and not a verb. Let me try to explain in the simplest way from a historical perspective. Historically, when a Jewish boy turned 13, he became a bar mitzvah automatically, with or without ceremony. Today, the more liberal branches of Judaism will say the same for a girl. Putting it in the feminine form, she becomes a bat mitzvah. Open parentheses. That term we hear so often recently, and recently means the last few years or decades, b'nai mitzvah is the plural. It's often used in the singular form, such as, quote, his b'nai mitzvah, his b'nai mitzvah. It's almost like the contemporary English usage of they in the singular, so we're not indicating whether the they is masculine or feminine. I'm speaking historically. There's bar mitzvah and there's bat mitzvah. Now, I cannot emphasize enough, again historically, that you become a bar or a bat mitzvah, you don't get bar or bat mitzvahd. Bar or bat mitzvah is a noun. It isn't a verb. Primarily, it refers to a person, though, given the influence of Hebrew on Yiddish, and then Yiddish back to Hebrew and English, it can refer to the commemoration and the celebration. So, let's say we have a lovely Jewish woman whose name is Sarah. Oh, she was a good Jewish name, one of our matriarchs, and her son is reaching the age of 13, and we're talking about the celebration that she's planning. You may hear somebody say Sarah's bar mitzvah, meaning the ceremony. But in its original usage, it refers to the young man or the young woman. Now, what does the term bar or bat mitzvah actually mean? I'm going to break it down. Mitzvah means commandment. Again, through Yiddish influence on English, mitzvah is often used as a good deed. Now, there is a commandment to perform good deeds, but in its root meaning, it's a commandment. A person can command another person, let's say, to take out the garbage, please. But the commandments we're talking about here are commandments from God. Historically, whether you believe in it or not, God gave 613 commandments on Mount Sinai. We are under the obligation to observe them, and that's the context of the word mitzvah here. Many times you will go to a bar or bat mitzvah ceremony, and they'll give you a little program or pamphlet when you come in, and it will say, and I'm limiting it to the male, but it applies to the female as well, bar mitzvah means son of the commandment. That's missing the point completely. It's a misuse of language. Let me explain. It's inaccurate. It doesn't make sense. Commandments don't have sons or daughters. Bar is an Aramaic word. The Hebrew equivalent is ben. Now, we all learned in Hebrew school that ben can mean son. It can also refer to membership in a class or a group. Or if you want to talk about someone's age, you would say he is ben, let's say, chamishim. That would be he's 50 years old. Ani ben shivim v'chamesh. I'm 75 years old. I am ben 75. I'm in that category. We weren't taught that in Sunday school. That's okay. So really, in our case, our bar or bat mitzvah is not the son or the daughter of the commandment. Commandments aren't parents. And the bar or bat mitzvah is now in a new category. Assuming that kid, and we're putting it that way because we're not talking about a full-fledged adult member of the community, even though they say, now you are a man. Sure, you're still a little boy. Your mother tells you to behave, you still behave. You should anyway. You are in a new category. You have new obligations. You're responsible on a moral, ethical, and ritual level for yourself, okay? And you are under the obligation to observe the commandments. Being considered a Jewish adult means taking responsibility for your actions. Traditionally, and we're not talking about the modern world, we do whatever we want, you know that, and I know that, and we rejoice that we have that freedom. Traditionally, you don't have a choice. Every adult, every bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah is under that obligation. Now, again, open parentheses. We need to understand the limits of being considered a Jewish adult at the age of 13. We've already mentioned moral responsibility for our actions, but in reality, the emphasis is on being considered an adult within the synagogue community. And what does that mean? It means the bar, and we're going to be modern, the bar or bat mitzvah can be considered as part of, to be counted in the minyan, the quorum required for public worship. That individual can now be given an aliyah, can be called up, aliyah going up, to the Torah to say the blessings before and after the Torah reading. That individual, if that individual is skilled, can lead the congregation in public worship. We see a good amount of the celebration, and we're talking about the synagogue part now. I'm not interested in the party afterwards. In the synagogue celebration, this young man, this young woman is given an aliyah, says the blessings before and after the Torah reading. I hope reads part of the Torah, the Haftorah as well, leads a good part of the service. A lot of it depends on the custom of the community and the skill of the individual. It really varies, but you've now reached that stage, that age, when you can do that. In fact, the essence of the bar or bat mitzvah celebration and commemoration is being called up for the aliyah. Now, I'm going to add something to that. Many times the parents stand there with great pride, understandably so, and give beautiful speeches. But there's an extra element that is often left out, and it often depends on the Hebrew skills, but it could be said in English, of the parents. As the young man, young woman finishes saying the blessings before and after the Torah reading, the father traditionally, now both parents would say, Baruch shepitarani me'onsho shel zeh. Baruch shepitarani me'onsho shel zeh. praised be he, meaning God, was relieved me of the responsibility for this boy or girl. The parent celebrates. My child is now responsible for himself or herself. Open parentheses, you may think this kid can't be responsible for anything. Doesn't matter. This is the way we've understood it historically. Now, many times, rabbis and congregations with religious schools and younger families have all kinds of challenges facing the whole issue of bar and bat mitzvah. And I have to say, we don't have that here because it's a rare day when we have such a celebration. When we do, it's a very special occasion. We expect that person to have attended services before the celebration. Some congregations have a requirement. You have to attend at least 10 services the year before. If you do not want to attend services, if this is meaningless to you, what on earth are you celebrating? Or are you just using this as an excuse for a party? And there isn't a rabbi in the world who doesn't feel some sort of sense that I've just exhibited in my tone of voice, if nothing else, if there isn't a sense of commitment to the synagogue community. Now, I want to mention a few other things, and I know I'm putting this in a way that is quite different from what we are normally used to saying in our normal speech regarding the bar bat mitzvah of a child, a grandchild, a friend, a nephew, or what have you. There's no such thing as a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah service. It's the regular service that would be on that day, a day when the Torah is read. The most important time when the Torah is read is on Shabbat morning. There are other times during the week when there's a Torah reading, a shorter one to be sure, on Shabbat afternoon, Monday morning, and Thursday morning. And oftentimes people will choose that time to celebrate their becoming a bar or bat mitzvah. I need to point that out too, because whenever the Torah reading is there, we can call somebody up for an aliyah. There are some modern practices, I think they all come out of the Reform movement, that's okay, that are associated with bar and bat mitzvah, but they are modern. In other words, we didn't have them historically. In many congregations, the Torah scroll is taken out of the ark. It's handed, let's say, to a senior relative, ideally grandparents, who then pass the Torah to the parents, who then pass the Torah to the bar or bat mitzvah. It's called the Torah pass. There's no place for this traditionally. Your parents, your grandparents, in a sense, it's yours whether they give it to you or not. Unfortunately, this has become a very important factor in the service for many people. I say unfortunately because I'm looking at this historically, but I will also turn it around and say fortunately, because bar or bat mitzvah celebrations are often major family celebrations, and there is something very beautiful and powerful in having this kind of approach. And I'm going to give a different approach to bar and bat mitzvah celebration completely right now. We talked about the essence of it, having an aliyah and saying the Torah blessings. In many Reform congregations, there is a little ceremony before all of this where the boy or the girl is presented with a talit, a tallis, and the boy or girl puts that on before saying the Torah blessings. Ideally, that tallis should have been put on at the beginning of the service with the appropriate blessing. That's another story. In some parts of the Hasidic world, it is not the tallis, the talit, that is most important, but the tefillin. And the first time you put on your tefillin is a celebration of your becoming a bar mitzvah. So let's say your birthday is on a Tuesday, and there won't be a Torah reading until Thursday. Do you wait until Thursday? No, you're now old enough to put on your tefillin and that is a celebration in and of itself. That is lost in the Reformed Jewish world because Reformed Jews, for the most part, don't wear tefillin. And that would only be done, by the way, in a weekday service because you don't wear tefillin on Shabbat. I hope I have not shattered too many conceptions. I know that for many people, this is a rite of passage, and rightly so, but the celebration of being a bar bat mitzvah should be the beginning and not the end. And forgive me if I make some rather sad comments. Bar and bat mitzvah, this is what keeps a lot of congregations alive and going. One of the things that we can say in our favor of TBI, our members have not joined so they can have a bar bat mitzvah celebration, or they have not joined because of our religious school. They're members because they want to be members. The drop-off rate in membership is very high after bar or bat mitzvah. The comment is often said, and this only applies to modern Reformed congregations, not an Orthodox congregation, because people wouldn't drive on Shabbat. Every Shabbat morning, the parking lot is full, but it's full with different cars, different families celebrating differently. But if this is the end, where is the meaning? I know the caterers don't like what I'm saying. I'm de-emphasizing the big blast party afterwards. That's wonderful if you want to do it. That's not my department. My department is to try to get people to understand a sense of history. And part of the sense of history is this. We expect our little kids, when we reach my age, your age, to be 13, you're a little kid. We expect our little kids to be able to read the biblical text in the original language. However little they read, however much they read, however poorly they read it even. It is unbelievably impressive if we stop to think about it. We take it for granted. And I would hope we would give our children the skills to do that. We also, parenthetically, are teaching our children how to read, perform, speak in public. Now I'm going to talk about one more thing quickly, and then we're going to have our discussion. A sad comment. Somebody mentioned to me, it stuck with me forever, that your bar or bat mitzvah celebration is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to read from the Torah. What nonsense. You can read from the Torah whenever you want. If you would like to do the Torah reading on a Shabbat morning service at TBI, just tell me. If you want to go over it with me a few times in advance, that's okay too. It isn't just at the time of your bar and bat mitzvah. Adult bar and bat mitzvahs. So you're 85 years old and your parents never gave you this opportunity. You are still a bar mitzvah. You're just waiting a few years to celebrate it. And we are thinking very seriously about having an adult bar and bat mitzvah class for those who didn't have the opportunity through no fault of their own, or those who wanted to do another ceremony. And however many people would like to participate, we're seriously thinking about doing this and putting a group together, which would involve a Judaism review course and a little bit of Hebrew and the Torah blessings and what to do and what not to do. I put in the ad for this something about confirmation also. The early reformers 200 years ago thought that bar mitzvah, you were too young, so they jacked it up a few years, and they took the Protestant and Catholic, I guess, ceremony of confirmation and tried to apply it or use the word for Judaism. Again, it doesn't make any sense that you got confirmed. You confirm. You confirm your loyalty, but from a traditional Jewish perspective, you don't have a choice. And understood in its Christian sense, you're confirming your baptism. That is not what we're saying, however. So I hope when we realize that we as Jews have an obligation, whether we want to or not, we are not becoming Jews at the time of our bar and bat mitzvah. We are not being transformed by some magical event of a rabbinic blessing. We are celebrating the new status that we have. And may all of us do what some of us have done through our teenage years, and then our 20s and 30s and 80s and 90s, and even more. Why not? Continue to learn and continue to appreciate the great heritage that we have inherited. Thank you very much. And in a moment or so, we will begin our discussion. And